Gracie Jiu Jitsu rocks. Welcome to the Gracie Jiu Jitsu Rocks podcast, a podcast dedicated to Gracie Jiu Jitsu and all things Gracie, including self-defense, competition, anti-bullying, women's self-defense and empowerment, nutrition, and most especially, the people involved in Gracie Jiu Jitsu. This podcast is for the average Joe. It's for anyone who practices, trains, teaches, or just loves to talk about or hear about Gracie Jiu Jitsu. We'll explore the lives of Gracie Jiu Jitsu practitioners, how they got involved in the art, and what effect it's had on their lives. So buckle up and enjoy the ride. Welcome to episode 131 of the Gracie Jiu Jitsu Rocks podcast. As always, I'm your host, Marty Josie, and thanks for listening. Today I'll be speaking with Evandro Nunes, and we'll get to that in just a moment, but let's start with our martial arts quote, and that is, "You train to become a warrior, not a fighter. The warrior knows the hell he can let loose, so he chooses the path of peace and respect." And that is from Kanishka Sharma. Great quote. All right, Evandro Nunes is a jiu-jitsu black belt and an instructor at Gracie University headquarters in LA. I've had the privilege of being around him on many occasions, and if you've never met him, he's just such an awesome and insightful person. He's one of those people who makes me want to be a better person. So really excited to be talking to him today. In this interview, we get into a little bit of his background and history, but a lot into his jiu-jitsu philosophy, lessons he's learned through jiu-jitsu, what brings him a sense of joy in life, and spirituality. We also talk about self-care and what really is healthy. We talk about peak experiences and what causes or constitutes those. And we also get into his favorite books and movies. We discuss the psychology of striving and not being content with where you are, and a lot of other cool things that I know you're going to get a lot out of. So I know you're going to enjoy this interview as I did. After the interview, make sure you stick around for the Make a Difference, Make an Impact segment. And now without further ado, let's talk to Evandro. All right, I have the pleasure of speaking with Evandro Nunes right now. He's a jiu-jitsu black belt and instructor at Gracie University headquarters. So welcome, my friend.
Thank you, Marty. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure. From the bottom of my heart.
I love your enthusiasm, my friend. You know, before we begin, I want to tell you how much I admire and respect you. The first time I met you, I could sense a presence and an energy from you that was so positive and genuine, and I really appreciate that about you.
I see. Thank you for telling me that. I appreciate your recognition and your perception. I appreciate that.
Right on. And because of that, I want to explore more with you on a philosophical basis in this conversation, a little more than just the standard, your jiu-jitsu background and that kind of thing. Okay. So I want people to get a broader understanding of who you are as a person. So we'll start with your background in jiu-jitsu, but I know you've told that story quite a bit, so we won't dwell as long on that part of your journey and history. We'll get more into other parts of your journey as well. So for those who aren't already familiar with your story, Evandro, just give us a little bit of a brief history of your background, how you got started in jiu-jitsu, and what led you to it, and where it went from there.
Yes, 100%. And feel free to interview with any question about what I'm saying at any time. So, Marty, basically, I grew up in Brazil, right? And in Brazil, it's something I can describe as a different universe than here in America, for the sake that the way society works is very different. So I grew up with very much a lot of street fights happening, and a lot of injustice happening. Maybe maybe bullying in school, maybe adults fighting on the streets. It was very much like a no man's land in a certain way, and I was always curious to that because I couldn't understand. As a child, I would look at like certain behaviors in society, and I would just kind of, man, why is that happening? And just always very curious to understand what would motivate people to do certain things. So basically, my dad was very strong on some moral values, right? So he was always telling me things like always respect women, always respect those that need, always be accountable for your actions, be responsible for your words. You do impact the environment around you. Be kind, be gentle. You see, just kind of gentleman energy, good traits of a human being. And then, even though I was doing that, Marty, there was fights still happening. So I realized that me being a good guy, quote unquote good guy, was not preventing me from getting into fights. It was actually putting me into more fights, because once I would see disrespect or dishonesty happening in front of me, I would defend that. I would intervene. You see?
Yes.
So because of that, people would not like me interviewing, and they would try to fight me. I was the enemy of the disrespect. So and there was a lot of fights, and the way that it happened was it was like this: I would win 50% of them, and I would lose 50% of them. I got my first black eye when I was in first grade, right? And I was like, man, I was right. I should not lose it. That was my mindset. But then I realized that that's not how things work, and that if I needed to defend myself, I need to know a martial art. And that's when I joined Vale Tudo school, which it's the current MMA, right? Like the mixed martial arts. Back in the days, it was called Vale Tudo. And then in the first or second week, I discovered Jiu Jitsu within them, because it was like this: it was boxing, Muay Thai, and Jiu Jitsu in different days of the week. And then I noticed my natural gravitational pull towards the Jiu Jitsu days, because I was so skinny that I could perform those much better than punching the bags and kicking, people's shin pads. And then from there, my man, things just started evolving, and I stick to Jiu Jitsu, and that was the entry door on how I started and why I started. Does that make sense for you?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I know you went the competitive route for a number of time and rose to the top. Did some great things, were very successful there, and at some point, your philosophy kind of changed regarding jiu-jitsu. So I want to read a quote of yours, and that quote is, "It's like I have a lion beside me always. He is ferocious, aggressive, and unyielding, ready to tear the room apart. But because of my understanding of jiu-jitsu and right and wrong, I am able to contain him. The lion bows to my understanding." So I love that quote, man. It's so cool. If you would elaborate a little bit on that and just your philosophy in general about jiu-jitsu now at this time in your life.
Yes. So that is 100% my quote. And I remember I was teaching Gracie Survival Tactics, which is a course that we do for law enforcement, which is a very fulfilling course. And I was talking to the guys, and I was like, because here's the deal: when people mount the officer or any human being, right? Any one of us that train jiu-jitsu, we know the feeling of being held on the floor against our will. And we want to escape. There's something inside of you that says, man, like, let me go. Like, I don't want to be here. I want to get out right now. And that is the lion within that I was referring to. And that lion, even though he's strong, and it's a lion or a lioness, doesn't matter. It's the animal that is powerful. It's the animal that is powerful within us, that just want to like tear everything apart. And back in my old days, I had that inside of me, the same way that I have it right now. But back in the old days, when he would show up, my awareness would back out, and he would scratch and bite and tear everything apart when he was present, and I would just witness. And then once the lion was done with the attack, quote unquote, I would then come back to my awareness, right? So what happens in jiu-jitsu is that if you are being held against your will and you do that, what's going to happen with that? If you can't escape, great, then you escape. But if you cannot escape, you're going to find yourself closer to exhaustion. You're going to exhaust yourself, because the blind lion has no saving for tomorrow, has no cognitive ability to preserve. and to do what is necessary. It does no matter what. It's almost the approach is no matter what, I'm gonna get out. Instead of the approach being, you know what, I'm not in an imminent threat right now. I'm gonna wait in order to lash out. You see my point?
Absolutely.
So that's what I was referring to, because now here's what I realized, Marty, that there's two kinds of line of thoughts, right? There's one line of thought that, man, you have to train harder, you have to be the lion, and you have to do CrossFit and bench presses and make the lion stronger. And I like that. That is one mindset. And like you mentioned, I competed my whole life, and I had that within me, and it was amazing. And then there's the other mindset which tells us be strategic, be purposeful, save your energy. And it's almost like there's this invisible opposite of these two spectrums, right? These two forces. It's almost one contradicts the other. And here's what I realized, that they don't need to contradict each other. I can have both within myself. So now, going back to the analogy of the lion, I am this efficient, aware, strategic presence that is in charge of the lion. You see?
I do. That's great.
Then I can at will be the most serene, compassionate, calm, collected human being on earth. And at a blink of an eye, I can flip the table and punch people. You see what I'm saying? I can do whatever. Energy. Is that clear, Marty?
It's clear, and I applaud it, because it's a beautiful thing, because so many people feel like it has to be one or the other. It's either, go crazy and just use all your strength and the most aggressive person, wins, or you completely the other way, that's so passive that although it's fun, you almost feel like aggression is your enemy. So I like how you have it tamed and you have it balanced, but you can use either tool or either aspect whenever you need to for your own good. Yeah.
You use the word balanced, and I'm not sure if the word is balance, Marty, because it's purposeful unbalance. I don't want to be in the middle. If let's imagine 3 lines in front of you. Like imagine a timeline, and then 3 periods. In the extreme left, the lion. In the extreme right, the calm, peace, and serene. And in the middle, the balance. Okay. If I have to choose a place to be, it's neither of those 3 points. It's a wave. It's a spectrum of possibilities. Because, for example, if I'm sparring with you and I feel a certain, desire to be calm, I stay calm. But then suddenly you give me a window of escape, and then I do a little trap and roll, and I immediately get out. Meaning that I went to the left of the spectrum, and I became both. But then at the same second right after, I go back to the middle, and I'm halfway. And then I tune it down to calm. And then maybe you stretch your arm up, and I quickly catch the arm lock. So you see, it's not about finding a place of stagnance. Mm-hmm. Stagnant it's almost not reliable, right? It's a purposeful maneuver in between calm, middle, aggressive, and that's what, and that is the epiphany, right? That we can be anyone at any given time, and that would be the attitude that would approach life to many other aspects, right? But that was kind of us talking about the lion within. You see, the lion is not in charge. I have the lion within me, and sometimes he leads because I let him, and he tears things apart, and sometimes he don't. He respects me. We work together. You see, we're the same.
Yes. But you have complete freedom of choice, and that's the key, right? You're not being led by or controlled by the lion. You are controlling it, and that's the biggest factor. And, yes. Some people, if they don't learn this lesson, if they don't learn how to tame the lion, eventually you're forced to. As you get older, you're not going to be able to use the same attributes in the same way. So it's good that people learn it earlier. I mean, I'm getting older, and it's just a reality. You gotta use the lion very differently and at different times, but it's better to learn it younger, right?
My resistance with that is that then if you are older and you didn't learn, then you're too old to learn. You see, so that's why I don't want to agree with that, because even though it would be nice to learn earlier, I guess, but I can also argue that it's nice to learn right now. You understand?
where you are.
Otherwise, yeah, otherwise we're going to do well that we didn't learn earlier.
No,
And
I get
now
it.
we lost our window of opportunity, you see?
Yeah.
So, but let me ask you this. Do you think that people are a little shied away of being a lion? You know what I'm saying? It's almost like people tells us, hey, don't break that. Hey, be, you know, like walk in the line, cross the street when the light is green. You see little things like that that almost don't let the lion be, because the lion doesn't belong to society. You agree with me? We don't want people in society, you know, not respecting the rules and flipping the table and tearing things apart. That's just not how we would friendly exist with other human beings. You follow me?
Yes.
So almost people have an aversion. Do you see that to be truth? Almost like there's an invisible oppressing of this inner lion,
Sure.
let's call it.
I do
Because
actually.
it is tearing apart, right? It's animalistic. And we want to be not animalistic, but then as a consequence of that, we don't exercise the lion. Now, that doesn't mean that we're going to lose it. You see, it's almost we have to find a safe environment in which you can express the lion instead of expressing in society and then literally lying and tearing people apart in reality, right? Just a practice. It's to practice the lion, not to use it in reality, you know?
Love it.
So my question is, do you feel that society kind of oppress one or the other? You see?
I do. As far as jiu-jitsu schools, I've seen both. I've seen both sides a lot. But with society at large, I do think there's a trend to where even if you see the way people teach kids, especially boys, you know, that, hey, you gotta kind of deny a part of who you are to color in the lines so you're not, you know, offensive in some way. But I think we can't deny those aspects about us, but we do need to make sure it's not uncontrolled.
Yes. I like that. In Jiu-Jitsu, you're right. Jiu-Jitsu is a clear extrapolation of society is, right? It's they kind of walk along.
It's true.
The oppression to, or the attachment to one of the other, one extreme and the other, to Jiu-Jitsu and I think society. Yeah.
I agree, and I think that comes down from wherever you are, what association or what school you maybe comes from the top. They usually set the tone, and the students usually kind of follow suit. So it's important to have someone that's, you know, really in tune to all that.
Yeah.
So do you have it's kind of a silly question, but do you have a favorite position or submission or aspect of jiu-jitsu?
If you had asked me that question 10 years ago, I would say it's the triangle, because it works so, and it's so amazing, and it's easy to do, and I have long legs, which also helps. So that would be the easy answer for the easy question. Now, with time, you realize that every position in Jiu-Jitsu is just one position. So no matter where I am today, it's my favorite place to be. And if I'm in the bottom of the mount, oh my gosh, I love the trap and roll, Marty. If I'm on the top of the mount, hooks in, mount control, handle the collar if necessary.
Right.
If you're inside it, maybe the arm lock, you see? Which that is my answer right now.
All right.
Which is just accepting where I am, and that would be my favorite place.
That's great. That's great. So mine is, I love the scarf position just as a position, but the aspect of jiu-jitsu that I'm focused more on, I've given lip service to this for a while, but I never have really fully committed, and that is just defense first, staying comfortable and safe and not being worried about transitioning or finding a submission. And that, you know, sometimes I'm able to get in that space and be there, but not as often as I would like. I still let different things, ego or whatever, seep in sometimes. So that's what I'm working on the most, I think, really being true to that.
I see. I love that. Yeah, and that is for sure something that, you know, I've learned and developed with Hiron and Henner, Gracie University. The way that we teach Jiu-Jitsu today, Marty, it's so beautiful. The way that we, you know, receive the beginner, the person that never trained Jiu-Jitsu before. It's so, man, it's such an honor to be part of this introduction to Jiu-Jitsu, you see? And that is the way to train Jiu-Jitsu. You don't want to train lion mode. You see, Marty? Yes. Even though I'm very passionate to talk about this lion within, it's important that we focus on the purposefulness of the lion and not on the random, because otherwise we generate pain and then you hurt your training partner and you hurt your own knee. So the way to train is the way of calmness and survival, like you're saying. Just being defensive, being aware. And then for fun, purposeful, and sometimes we exercise the lion. You see how it kind of connects?
I do.
But if I had to grab towards one side of the spectrum as a default, I will allow gravity to pull me towards calmness and awareness.
Love it.
But now people, it's almost they gravitate to the other side for fear. But now what you're saying is that I don't want to be afraid and I want to be calm and collected. And that is Jiu-Jitsu, the ability to gravitate towards calmness.
Yes.
Not run away from craziness, from lionness, let's call it, but gravitating towards calmness and not the opposites.
Awesome. So let's shift just a little bit, Evandro, and let's talk about what gives you a real sense of joy in your life right now. Even besides Jiu-Jitsu, just in your life in general, what gives you the real sense of joy?
Okay, so I love that question. And me looking at this computer right now and talking to you is what gives me joy, right? There's nothing else. There's no water. There's no juice. There's no coffee. There's no food, no taste, no smell, no sight, like, oh, the mountains or the trees, nothing. All of that is mental right now. It's not even happening. And I'm just touching it with using my memory and my cognitive ability to express what I'm remembering. Memories have no power over me. The joy does not happen from memories. It happens from doing it. You see? So look what I'm doing right now, Marty. I'm talking. I'm expressing myself, Marty. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes. You're connecting.
I'm connecting with you, with people that are listening to us. Like maybe you are listening to this in your car right now, or someone is, whatever you are right now doing, listening to my words. Think about, or don't even think about, just experience the sound coming in your ears, in your brains automatically, without you worrying about. It's understanding my words. If my English is clear enough, which I hope it is.
It's great.
Understanding what I'm saying, and then humor is kicking in, and then peace, and then maybe you're driving, you're just kind of dodging other cars, and putting your foot on the brake or accelerating. But you see, my point is that to answer your question, the joy is on the right now. Whatever experience that is, it could be me talking to you, and it could be me tasting food, it could be me enjoying entertainment, it could be me sad. You see, I could be having a tough day, a hard day in which I'm late, or I'm busy, or I'm upset, or I'm frustrated with my beloved one, you see. But even though that would be pure joy through a different goggle, through different lenses, but not, resisting the current experience, which is sometimes what people do, and that's why they kind of suffer a little bit. Because think about this, Marty. If I'm here talking to you and I say that I feel joy in training Jiu-Jitsu, that would imply that I'm not feeling joy right now talking to you. So why am I talking to you?
Yes, it's the heart of mindfulness and being present completely in the moment. And we live so much of our life either carrying things that have already happened, even if it was 5 minutes ago, or even if it was a year ago, or anticipating something in the future, whether it's something we're looking forward to or dreading. It robs us of what all is that true connection right now through the mindfulness, right?
Yes, 100% what you said.
Yeah, and I'm a big believer in practicer of mindfulness. Used to be a stress management counselor, so I see the impact that can have in people's lives instead of living all over the place. But Evandro, would you consider yourself a spiritual person?
I would not consider myself a spiritual person. I would not consider myself anything, Marty. You know why?
Why?
Because at the moment that I consider myself spiritual, I am not in touch with a certain energy of quote unquote spirituality. You see, it's the same as me calling myself a black belt. Am I a black belt, Marty?
I think that's a trick question. You certainly have achieved the rank of the black belt. Is that who you are as a person? No, of course not.
Yeah, you see, but here's the deal. When I tie a black belt around my waist, even though I do carry that and I worked hard for it, and there was there's a lot of meaning that can be given to the black belt. Now, when I spar with you, what does it matter my black belt itself? doesn't mean anything.
Right.
You could literally tap me or, do a nice escape or survive through jiu-jitsu, which in the belt that you're carrying does have no impact on you see. So the symbol of the black belt has no impact on the person's jiu-jitsu. Now, what they did in order to take them there has impact on their jiu-jitsu, which most of the times is accurately represented for the belt and collar that they tie around their waist. But it's important for us to understand that my spirituality, me considering myself spiritual or not, is irrelevant to the energy that I emanate when I am around other people. The same way that me considering myself a black or a brown belt is irrelevant to the way I perform jiu-jitsu. You see? So that's why I would not like to call myself spiritual or non-spiritual, because it's irrelevant for the energy that I emanate. And so maybe you can think that's a very spiritual answer. But
No. Well, let me make sure I'm understanding. You don't like the label or the term applying it to yourself. It doesn't mean you don't think you have a spiritual nature to your person, or does it?
It's not that I don't like the label. It's because I just find it that it's hard to label something. You know what I'm saying? It's just hard to label it. Now, I do recognize the spirituality within me, within other people around me, within everything that is existing, just kind of people, trees, even the material, even glass and rocks, So, yeah, you can identify spirituality in everything that you see or things you see around you.
Okay. I believe that self-care is super important in making sure we recharge our batteries, take care of ourselves so we can be the best we can be and be there better for others. So what, if anything, do you do for self-care, Evandro?
When you say self-care, what do you mean?
Well, for example, I'd like to know what you do, but also why do you think people often fail to do what's good for them, such as exercise, meditate, eat healthy, etc.?
I see, but are those things good for you? For example, is exercising good for a person?
I think it is, yes.
So that's why it is.
Because that's my belief, right?
Yeah, because you think it is.
Well,
because sometimes what happens is people think that exercising is good, but then when they exercise, they don't feel good exercise. That's why they don't exercise. So there's a conflict with they want to do with what they think it's good to be doing. And that is where the self-care problems start to happen, you see, because of the conflict. It's the same as maybe everyone is saying, oh, you have to eat, a certain way. You have to eat A, B, and C nutrients instead of, D, E, and F. And they hear that from the outside and they try to eat healthy, but they don't feel good eating healthy, and then they're forcing it. And it's almost their attempt to self-care more damaging for the spirit, let's call it, than eating unhealthy. You see, when you want to have ice cream, it's better to eat ice cream guilt-free than to carry like a sense of duty, responsibility to eat fruit all the time. And then you're creating resentment within yourself, and you don't even know why. And chances are that is more unhealthy than eating that.
No, I get that. Your mental state and your beliefs actually affect your physiology. So if you're doing it because it's a have to and something you can't stand, it's going to affect your body in a very negative way.
Yes. So then what I would tell you is this. How do I self-care, and what do I see self-care to be? If I separate the self-care of my body, for example, eating healthy and exercise, with this health care, the self-care of my mind, which is being spontaneous, authentic, and honest with myself. If I separate those two, that means that they can conflict with each other. So what I aim to do is to align them. So let's say I wake up with a certain craving for sweets, okay? There's two ways of approaching it. One is to separate, like I mentioned, and just say, okay, doesn't matter what I feel, I'm not going to eat the sweet. And the other one is to really embrace the feeling and almost give permission for the craving to exist further and to actually be manifested in my reality. For example, sometimes, Marty, I'm having a little craving for a sweet, and then I eat the sweet. And then, as you know, and then some people listening to us might know as well, doesn't matter how much sweet you eat, you always want a little more. Sometimes we're even full and we keep still eating. Like it's weird.
Right.
Sure. Doesn't even make sense. So once you reach that point, you almost look at yourself like, man, why am I eating this? You can identify that you're eating something that is clearly not healthy for you because you just know the ingredients that are in within it. But then you identify that that's not something you want to be doing. And that allows you to align yourself to, man, I actually don't want to eat ice cream. I thought I wanted, but I don't. But you only know that you don't want to eat ice cream if you go and you eat the ice cream and you eat 2 buckets of it. You see?
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like in one lifetime, you can have experience of overeating ice cream. So you say, man, I thought I wanted ice cream, but I don't really want it. And then for the rest of your life, you never eat ice cream again. Instead of denying the first instinct of eating ice cream, not ever overeating ice cream, and then not ever realizing that what you actually were looking for was not ice cream. Was that clear?
Yes. You're taking a non-judgmental attitude, and it brings you to, I don't want to say enlightenment, but meaning out of it. And so there's a couple different thoughts. So I agree and I disagree, which doesn't really matter. But
tell me.
There's one camp that says if you feel like you know something based on studies you've read or wherever you get your information that you feel like something is healthy and good for you. So some people would say adopt that routine through discipline. Discipline meaning even if you don't want to or feel like doing it, make it a practice. And for a lot of people, if they get into that mode, they actually start really enjoying and loving it. And then it's not a have to or a should. It's something they look forward to and get a lot of joy out of doing. The other side or another camp is just like you said, you don't do something just because you think you should. You do something that brings you joy. You don't live your life with a set of rules that you got somewhere, like this sweet is unhealthy, I can't have it. No, you go ahead and give yourself permission non-judgmentally, and then you come to the realization, is this really what I was needing or wanting at that time, or was I just doing it for some other reason?
Yeah, so which one, Marty? A or B?
which one for me? I've done both, and I think it's still a process for me. There are things that I've adopted because I felt like they would be good for me, and doing so and putting it into a practice, I definitely started liking them and looking forward to them and getting joy from them, as well as, just feeling much better doing it and feeling good about having the discipline to do it. On the other hand, there have been times when I go the other route, when you could say drop the ball, whatever, instead of shaming myself and getting caught up into beating myself up, you say, well, you know what, that's that. And kind of think about it for a minute, let it go, and then keep going. That's where I am.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And you see how that connects to the talk that we had a little while ago about the lion, which should be calm in Jiu-Jitsu, should be explosive in Jiu-Jitsu. Both, right? Both. Whatever one you choose to exercise at that instance. And when you do it, if you fail, if you exhaust the sparring, it's okay. You're just learning how not to do it next time. And if you're maybe too cautious and you waited too long to escape, you got tapped, and then the next time you should go a little earlier. So what is the common link in between this? I would say that is the purposefulness that allows us to differentiate which one to do, Marty. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Because I don't know if I should be calm or I should be explosive. And I don't know if I should eat ice cream or if I should not eat it. What I know is that I have the inside of me at all times, the purposeful awareness to choose which one to do. And sometimes I have joy in being disciplined. Like once I realize that ice cream is not what I want, guess what? I purposefully don't eat ice cream and I feel amazing. I feel better than if I was just surrendering myself to the taste of it. You see?
Yes.
So the exercising part then is the perception that you have at any given time the willingness to choose what you're going to do next.
Yes.
And that is quite powerful.
It's very powerful. And again, I wasn't making a judgment on like exercise needs to be everybody's self-care. I do think it's healthy, but I also think people need to find what is going to be good for them. It could be meditation. It could be whatever, maybe walking on the beach. It could be just breathing, being mindful, picking flowers, whatever, or looking at flowers, whatever it is for you, drawing. Find something that helps you replenish and recharge your batteries and fill yourself up again. You know what I mean? Yeah, I do. And finding something that is sustainable, that is not harmful for the planet Earth or for those around you, right? Instead of finding pleasure in activities that are self-destructing, you find pleasure in activities that are
actually self-fulfilling and enhancing to the environment, to those around you. For example, eating ice cream is arguably a little destructive and not sustainable. Let's use the word sustainable, right? It's just not sustainable because your body needs different nutrients. But finding peace and joy in a healthy intake of foods, you will be sustainable for your body, for your mind, and will bring you the joy that you're finding within it.
Absolutely. So what constitutes a peak experience for you? Is it feelings of deep love, awe, peace, ecstasy, or some other emotion?
Great question, Marty. The answer is whatever feeling or emotion my body is experiencing. And my answer might be maybe hard to understand, because the way that we usually understand things is love is better than sadness, or excitement is better than frustration. But that would be separating and creating a duality again on those emotions, like we've been talking today. Mm-hmm. And understanding that knowledge only comes from non-knowledge. You can only know Jiu-Jitsu once you don't know Jiu-Jitsu. The problem starts when people, for example, in Jiu-Jitsu, we use the example of Jiu-Jitsu, for example, blue belts want to be purple belts. They want to know more. And that is not a problem at all. That's actually a good feeling, not to know something. Now, when they start getting a little bit resentful that they don't know something, or they're worse than someone else, then an unnecessary feeling starts rising within them that is conflicting and not productive for their own experience as a human being, right? Mm-hmm. But not knowing is amazing, Marty. And let me tell you this. As a black belt, as someone that's been training for a while and that was successful on the competition realm, and now I have the pleasure to be sharing Jiu-Jitsu in this amazing organization, which is Gracie University, with the best practitioners around me, I can tell you that look at this. It's less fun to know Jiu-Jitsu than to not know Jiu-Jitsu in a certain way.
Wow.
Look how crazy that is.
That's crazy, but I like it.
To be good, and for example, like very few people tap me out. And that is not the best feeling, Marty. I enter the room and then I spar with people, and I happen to perform Jiu-Jitsu better for a amount of reasons. Now, when I spar with Hiro and Henner, or some other guys that they actually, challenge me and they put me in places that I'm about to tap or that I tap often, that is joy. You see, I find the beauty into the fact that I don't know. Mm. So knowing is not the answer. Of course, it's nice to know some things. It's nice to perform, but it's also nice not to perform. You see? So to your question, what is the peak experience? The peak experience is whatever experience I'm feeling. If I'm upset, I love that I'm upset because there's something in my life that needs to be addressed. If he don't put his hands on my collar faster than I could anticipate or identify, and he taps me out, I love it. Because there's clearly something there that was not being addressed that happened, and I have an opportunity to address it and improve my jiu-jitsu. Same with my life. Maybe, I'm upset. Now it's time for me to be a little introspect instead of extrovert. You see? Yes. But when I'm extrovert and teaching a class for 100 officers on the mat, I love being extrovert. Does that make sense for you?
It does. It's like you don't want to label an experience good or bad, right or wrong, peak or otherwise. You see it as information, right? And you embrace the feeling and the information. All information is useful, right, for that peak experience.
Truth. And there's no duality on the experience, right? For me to label one or the other, there'll be me separating the human experience from better or worse, which that consequently leads to suffering, because now you're seeking something different than what it is.
Right.
Just because your own separation, you separated that. Like I said, the knowledge is the same experience as not knowing, because one relies on the other in order to exist. The happiness relies on sadness to exist. So when I'm upset, I actually get in touch with the upsetness, and then happiness surges because they're connected somehow, which is hard to explain.
Yeah.
So there's no duality. They're all one experience.
That's cool. Tony Robbins he defines the 6 basic human needs, and one of them is is certainty. So knowing you can rely on certain things, right? Maybe it's your knowledge in jiu-jitsu, whatever it may be. But then the
Yes.
second one's the exact opposite. It's uncertainty, the need for uncertainty. If we knew it all, or we could always knew what was going to happen and there was no variety, it would be pretty boring. So you need both, of course, plus other needs. But it's a whole different way of defining it. But I like how you spoke to it in terms of jiu-jitsu too. The blue belt wants to be the purple belt, etc. And you get into this psychology of striving. Instead of appreciating where you are, appreciate what you know, but also what you don't know.
Yes.
You don't tend to embrace that. You tend to look at, I want to know it all. I want to get to the next level. But I love how you put that.
Yes.
I think more people need to hear that for sure.
I like that. I like how you put it too.
All right. I was going to ask you if there's a special place you can go in which a highly meaningful experience is almost guaranteed, but it sounds like, Evandro, wherever you are, that's pretty much guaranteed because of how you define it.
That is true. And whatever I am is the experience, my experiencing being is there. But if I can say something, is that the less noise that is around you, the easier for you to find that in which you were before the noise existed. For example, whatever you're sitting right now, you might unconsciously be perceiving some objects around you. Could be a pen, a paper, a book, a bottle of water, whatever those things are, or whatever they are noises that your brain got desensitized to and almost take it for granted. Mm-hmm. So it's just like, sometimes if the refrigerator is doing a little noise or there's a little alarm, there's this beep, 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 and then forever it keeps happening. And then after a while, you don't hear it anymore. It's the same with visual cues, right? Mm-hmm. Whatever noise visually or auditory that is happening that your brain almost kind of take it for granted and you don't realize that you're listening, it blinds us from the human experience that came before all of that. So to your point, the easier way to access when sometimes you lost a hold or you lost in a perception of that human experience is to go to the jungle, to go to the mountains, to go to, no cell phones, Marty, no text messages, no nothing, no music, no books,
right?
Just you, yourself, and a little bit of those certainties, right? A little bit of water, a little bit of food, and things that, shelter, so you don't need to be worrying about shelter. And then you get in touch with that. So just kind of sometimes I do that maybe once a year. I go to the top of the mountain or to the middle of the jungle for X amount of time, and I get rid of any society connections that exist. And I stay there with myself and food in silence. And the next thing I see, I start noticing things a little different. I see colors a little different, noises a little different. And then when I get reinserted to society, I'm able to find a different gratitude into the simple things in life, which is the pen, and the paper. I can literally write my thoughts and my feelings on a piece of paper. Isn't that cool?
That's very cool. No, I agree. I think we're constantly bombarded with stimulus around us, and we think we get used to, we do get used to it. We get desensitized. But it is affecting our nervous system and our mind constantly. So going somewhere periodically and just getting away from all of that, I think, is super helpful. There's a quote I like that says, almost everything will work again if you unplug it for a few minutes, including you. And I think that, speaks to what you said. I also find it interesting you say, we get kind of desensitized into focusing visually on certain things and not others. As human beings, our minds can't possibly take in every single thing that's around us. So we become kind of deletion creatures, right? We can only focus on certain things at the expense of others. And there's an exercise I used to do with people, and maybe you can try this with somebody just to accentuate your point, is if you're in a room, and obviously you have to look at the room first, make sure these two colors are somewhere there. But to look around at the objects and tell them, okay, I'm going to give you 10 seconds to look at and observe everything you can in this room that's the color green. You can pick whatever color you want. So then you say, go. And they look around and they're really looking hard, focusing on all the green and everything. And you say, okay, close your eyes. And then you say, okay, without opening your eyes, I want you to tell me everything in this room that's brown. and they'll usually be like, and you're like, okay, open your eyes and look around. There's brown, there's brown, there's brown. Why didn't you see it? And it's like, because you're selectively focusing on green. And we do that all the time. There's things we could be noticing, beautiful things, and we don't because we're focusing on other things. So anyway, it's a fun little exercise to do.
It's pretty beautiful. I like that.
Right on. All right. So let's talk about books. What books have you, if you read books, what books have had the biggest impact on you, Evandro, and why?
Yes, there is. I often talk about this, right, to my close friends that there's no need to read books, right? Just don't read books. Just write your own book, even if they don't make sense for yourself. Just write it. Just express yourself authentically and honestly, and just kind of be your own book, be your own life. Now, it would be naive for me to deny the beautiful content that other people wrote, in which can inspire us to do something else. There's many books in my life that I read that were, very impactful. That it's like learning a new technique in Jiu Jitsu. Like, wow, I didn't know that was possible. You see, and then gives you a whole new scope. So the only resistance of me or talking about books is that people they overthink the book. You see, book is beautiful to use as a tool for you to write your own book right after, instead of a crutch in which you're always relying on books, right? Gotcha. That would be my 2 cents on it. But since you're asking, and I appreciate your curiosity, there's 2 books that I would like to say. One of them is called The Magic of Thinking Big.
Okay.
It's I'm not sure the author. I think it's David something, but if you just Google, it's a pretty famous book. You're gonna find it. The Magic of Thinking Big. That almost introduced me to the possibility of thinking bigger than I was thinking. Right? People often think about thinking outside the box.
Yep.
And that book gives us plausible scenarios in society on how that would apply to your income level, to your relationships, to whatever it is that's happening in your life that that you want to improve it, or you want to break the barriers of the box that you find yourself in within. So I highly recommend that one. And another one, she's a little smaller. It's an old book. It's called As a Man Thinketh. Have you heard about it?
I've heard both of them. The Magic of Thinking Big is from David Schwartz.
Yes.
And I read it a long time ago. And the other one you mentioned, As a Man Thinketh, it's a small book, but it's powerful.
Yeah, it's powerful. And again, you read a little something, you have a few epiphanies, and then you close the book and you go live your life, because that is the book that we all have, right? Our own.
Right.
It is our book.
Yes. Well, thank you for sharing with that. So I'm assuming you probably don't spend a lot of time watching movies or anything either. I was going to ask you, do you have any favorite movies? And if so, what are those?
Yeah, it's the same approach, right? I do watch movies, and there's beautiful content that other creators manifest. It could be, Superman, Batman, Spider-Man, whatever it is. There's always messages there, and it's important, just for you to, when you find yourself in an entertainment state that you want to watch movies, you watch it, and then you close the movie, like you close the book, and you go live. You see, that would be the separation that I would like to make.
Gotcha. But
it's a nice movie that I don't know if people know about it. Maybe you do, which is called The Dead Poets Society. Have you heard about it?
Oh, yes. Excellent.
Beautiful movie. Old school, Robin Williams.
Yes.
Like, not only artistic in the way that he, acts, and all the actors on that movie, but just the message. It's so pure and beautiful. That's one that resonates a lot with me. And there's another one that is called, which this one I don't think anyone will know about it, but I encourage you guys to go look for it. It's an anime. It's a 1 hour and 30 minutes movie, but it's cartoon, right? Like drone. I don't know how to say that in English.
Yes.
But it's called Your Name.
Your Name?
Your Name, yes.
Okay.
You can find easily on, Amazon Prime or any other.
Yeah, I'll check that out.
Yeah, it's very, you can see the cartoonish, which brings a little bit easier to understand for any ages, and any ages can watch it. But the magic that it can, the attempt to express in that form, it's quite beautiful.
Nice. Well, we'll definitely check those out. A couple of my favorites. Have you ever seen The Shawshank Redemption?
No, but I heard about it.
It's good. It's way back in, I think, either 30s or 40s. And this guy, Andy Devane's the main character. What's that?
No, keep going, keep going. I didn't watch it.
Oh, you did see it. Yeah, he's in prison for killing his wife, but he didn't really do it. Or you don't know really during the movie if he did or didn't. But and then Morgan Freeman's in there and befriends him. It's a great one. Yeah, the power of survival and overcoming your circumstances. It's really great.
Yeah, that is a very good movie.
Yeah, I agree. Awesome. All right, next kind of philosophical question, Evandro, is if you died tomorrow, what, if anything, would you regret not having done?
Nothing, Marty.
Nothing. Well, I knew that was going to be your answer. If you live in the moment, right, without wants and desires ruling you, then what's there to regret, right?
There's nothing to regret, my man. Even the mistakes that people often say, yeah, I regret mistakes that I did. I actually don't. The mistakes that I did allowed me to become the person I am today. So I'm very grateful for the mistakes that I did. And of course, I never want to do them again for the sake of hurting those around me or, being frustrated or whatever is the consequence that people judge negative. I, of course, don't want to repeat them, but I embrace them, and there's nothing. I'm ready to die right now, Marty.
Beautiful, beautiful. And there's not a lot of people that can say that and feel that way. So that's awesome.
I see. Yes.
So what have I not asked you about, Evandro, that you'd like to talk about or would like to comment about?
I'm not sure if there's anything that I would like to talk about it or that we didn't spoke because the conversation was so beautiful. But if there's anything that is in my mind right now regarding, those people that are listening to us right now, that it's almost like inside information that could benefit all of us, and it's a constant in my life as well, is this idea, and I'm going to explain in a base of an analogy with Jiu Jitsu and with other things that people can associate themselves with, which is this idea that when you are a blue belt, you want to be a purple. When you wear a purple, you want to be a brown. And you're a brown, you want to be a black. And when you're a black, you want to be maybe a world champion, or you want to be, better than another black belt in your gym. And we have this constant feeling of never being enough, right? You're always like, the white belt is not enough because he's out of shape maybe, or he gets tapped. He doesn't know how to do the cross choke. And this feeling of not enoughness, it kind of exists around us, okay? And I want to use that as a correlation with the feeling that when you were in school, for example, and because all of us went to school, actually, I don't know that, but assuming that most of us went to school and have that feeling of being in first grade and go to the second and go to the third and always going forward. And then you go to high school and then college and then maybe at work. It's just always never enough. And maybe right now, Marty, some people that are listening to us, they might hear the comments that we're having and they might still feel, man, I still don't feel that I'm enough. I still have to make a little bit more money and I have to pursue a little something else that is outside my reach. And when we talk about enoughness and being enough, there's this natural instinct of like, man, if I feel enough, then I will never produce anything anymore, and I will never make money, and I will never improve my jiu-jitsu. And I'm here to say that is not true. You can be enough and still improve. You can feel enough and still go to work and make more money to provide to your family. You see? Yes. And that inside information came when I became a black belt and I was a world champion. I was like, man, there's nothing here. It's not that good. There's nothing that, something happened. Or when I achieved a certain financial stability that I didn't have before, like the beauty of my life remained the same. So then if I ask you or those people listening to us right now, if you could go back to high school or to even before that, how would you do it? Would you be stressed out about your grades and suffer for the B- that you took it, or would you just enjoy more the journey? What do you think the answer would be, Marty?
Oh, of course, enjoy more of the journey.
Yeah, right. Because they know now, because they passed through the school system, they know there's not that serious. Of course, we can learn from it. Of course, the grades do matter. But if we would all go back, we would be a little more relaxed. We would flirt a little bit more. We would take some more field trips. Who knows, right?
Yes.
Everyone has that speech. If I was your age, I would do so and so, and it would be easier. Don't stress out so much. You see? So what I want to do is grab that experience that we all have and reflect your jiu-jitsu journey, which is I've been through the jiu-jitsu journey, white to black belt and beyond. And I'm telling you that if I was a blue belt today, I would enjoy a little bit more not knowing the techniques. You follow me?
Yeah.
And I realized that not knowing it and feeling enough, I'm like, enough not knowing it, it's not detrimental to my learning experience. It's actually beneficial, because when you're suffering because you don't know a technique, it's not better. It doesn't make it easier to learn. It actually makes it harder. You see?
Yes.
So by going to the gym, say, man, 80% of these guys are better than me. Okay, that's my reality. I accept it. So now let's have some fun. And by having fun with self-sufficiency and enoughness, you still improve, if not faster than you were before. So was it clear, the association that I made with it?
Yes, it was. There's one of my favorite quotes, Evandro, is you're allowed to be both a masterpiece and a work in progress simultaneously. And that's what I just heard you say in essence, is that you're okay to be exactly where you are. And, if you consider yourself a masterpiece, or just consider yourself enough, and still be learning and growing. I love that. And there are times when I can totally live there, right? And I can be content where I am. There are other times when it comes to jiu-jitsu and rank can be very anxiety provoking, because you want to go to the next level, because when you get away from just doing it for yourself and start thinking about how are you perceived, right? Like if you've been a blue belt for 6-7 years, for whatever reason, maybe you had to take time off or whatever, maybe you're just going slower, and that's fine too. But I know that a friend of mine told me this one time. He's been a blue belt a long time, and of course the public doesn't know, a lot of the public, general public doesn't know the difference between jiu-jitsu and taekwondo. So he had people that work with him say, hey, what rank are you? And he said, blue belt. And they're like, is that close to black? And he said, no. And they said, oh, well, little Johnny, my son does taekwondo. He's like 12, and they've had their black belt for years. And how long have you been training? And he's like, 7 years. He says, and obviously that's ego, but it's easy to fall into sometimes when you feel like people perceive you as you're not very far along. Ironically, though, there's anxiety about getting to the next belt, because then you sometimes feel like you want it, but do you deserve it? And now are you going to have to perform higher to prove that you deserve it? So I love how you're saying just let all that go and just enjoy training.
Yes. Yeah, I'm with you 100%. And what I heard that you said is other people's perception can influence your sense of enoughness.
Yes, that's true.
So because the person that is, with all respect, uneducated towards the difficulties of jiu-jitsu and the difficulties that you had in your life that you couldn't train. Mm-hmm. Like people are real struggles. Like, I don't even need to name them, but we all know the challenge that pull us away from our training environment or anything that we experience in our lives. But the uneducated opinion of someone else has an impact on you. And why do we allow that to happen, Marty? How can I look at someone that doesn't know about my life, doesn't know about the martial arts, to affect the sense of enoughness that I have within me? That's very dangerous.
It's very dangerous.
So now that we spoke about it, at least we have a certain awareness of it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And we can slowly, like you said, right, just kind of sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. But as long as you are aware of it, you can always gravitate towards the efficiency of surviving in real life and living life, instead of the clogged and forced against the stream energy of living life, right?
Yes. It's very, the more you can be conscious of it during it instead of after it. It's like if you get into an argument with someone, say a significant other or whomever. Let's say you get into an argument before you even realize it. You say some things you're not proud of. Later on, you're thinking about it and you're regretting it and trying to say, how do I not let that happen again? Then you move from that to when you are in the middle of or third, just getting into the argument, and all of a sudden you're conscious, hey, I don't want this to be happening. And then you diffuse it, you change it then. And then the next level is you don't even get in the argument, because what you're arguing about probably doesn't matter. Not really. So
it matters if you think it matters.
Exactly.
It matters.
Yes.
Yeah, I love it.
All right, my friend. Listen, I've taken enough of your time, but I really, really appreciate the conversation. like I said, I have a lot of respect for you. I'm not saying that to flatter you. I just, I love genuine people, and I love conversing and connecting with genuine people. So hats off to you for sure. And I appreciate the way you're touching lives and helping people grow.
Marty, thank you for appreciation, brother. My appreciation is the same towards you. And the authenticity that you witness in me is because you have a certain authenticity in your perception of it, you see? So you share the same quality, and all of those people listening to us right now, whatever they identify in me or in you, Marty, is also a reflection of themselves, which is pretty empowering if you think about it, right? Because the one that doesn't know the taste of meat doesn't know how to identify the taste of meat, you see? So because you have that in within, you can identify it in myself, which is the highest form of compliment that one can give, and I appreciate you for doing that.
Nice. Well, thank you so much, my brother, and be well, and long, healthy, happy life, my friend.
Thank you, Marty. I will see you again, and all the love, brother.
All right, buddy. Take care.
Ciao.
All right. Really enjoyed that conversation with Evandro. What a cool and interesting person. And like I said at the start, before the interview, he's the kind of person that really makes me want to be a better person. So really glad I got to do that. Up next is the Make a Difference, Make an Impact segment. All right, time now for the Make a Difference, Make an Impact segment. Today I'll be sharing a story from Joe Hyam's book, Zen and the Martial Arts. And it's called Lengthen Your Line. I first met Kempo karate master Ed Parker in 1952 in a Beverly Hills gym where he rented space. A handsome 6-foot-tall Hawaiian with a thick thatch of black hair, Parker reminded me of a huge tree, with arms like powerful bows and bare feet rooted firmly on the canvas mat. Despite his size, he is a whirlwind in motion. He was wearing an old, loose-fitting gi, a two-piece cotton uniform worn by most martial artists. The gi, like his black belt, was white in places from fraying and repeated launderings. His face was serene and peaceful, as though he had just completed meditating. I will remember one of my initial sessions at his dojo in Los Angeles, where I was practicing kumite, or sparring, with a more skillful opponent. To make up for my lack of knowledge and experience, I tried deceptive, tricky moves that were readily countered. I was outclassed, and Parker watched me get roundly trounced. When the match was over, I was dejected. Parker invited me into his small office, a small, sparsely furnished room with only a scarred desk and battered chairs. "Why are you so upset?" he asked. "Because I could score." Parker got up from behind the desk with a piece of chalk, drew a line on the floor about 5 feet long. "How can you make this line shorter?" he asked. I studied the line and gave him several answers, including cutting the line in many pieces. He shook his head and drew a second line, longer than the first. "Now, how does the first line look?" "Shorter," I said. Parker nodded. "It is always better to improve and strengthen your own line or knowledge than to try to cut your opponent's line." He accompanied me to the door and added, "Think about what I have just said." I did think about it and studied hard for the next several months, developing greater skills, increasing my knowledge and ability. The next time I went on the mat with the same opponent, he too had improved. But I fared far better than I had previously because I had raised my level of knowledge as well as developing my skills. Not long after, I realized I could apply the principle Parker had taught me to my tennis game. An avid weekend tennis player, I frequently found myself pitted against better players, and when things started to go badly for me on the court, I often resorted to trickery, slicing the ball, trying to hit it with a spin, attempting difficult drop shots. Invariably, I lost and was frustrated. Instead of trying to better my own game, I was trying to cut their line. I recognized that I had to play to my best ability rather than try to worsen my opponent's play. Keeping Parker's advice in my mind, my game soon improved. So in what areas of your life are you selling yourself short and focusing on your short line? What areas of your life could you be lengthening your line by increasing your skill, your knowledge, or your resolve and your commitment? As you're going through your day, your week, your month, take this story and this notion in mind. Help it guide you as you continue to focus on lengthening your line. And that's going to do it for this edition of the show. As always, I thank you for listening. Hope you're enjoying the show. If you feel like you're benefiting from the show and want to show your support, you can support us on our Patreon page and a link in the show notes. Please like and follow us on social media and help us spread the word by reposting our posts and telling others about the show. You can leave comments on the website at www.GracieJujitsuRocks.com. You can also go to iTunes and leave comments as well as rate the show, and we would appreciate a 5-star rating, which helps us with our standing in iTunes. You can also leave comments on our YouTube channel. If you have suggestions for the show, please don't hesitate to give those. We always like feedback and suggestions. Okay, that's going to do it. So until next time, this is Marty Josie, and I'll see you on the mat.